Dr. Bonenfant was rummaging pensively through his memory, quietly repeating to himself, "A Christmas tale? A Christmas tale?" Suddenly, he exclaimed, "Ah, yes. I do have a memory, and a most unusual one at that. It is almost fantastic. I witnessed a miracle. Yes, ladies, a miracle on Christmas night itself. Are you surprised to hear this from me, a man of skeptical mind who believes in nothing? And yet, I saw a miracle. I swear it, I saw it with my own eyes, truly saw it. And did it astonish me? Not in the least. I do not believe in your dogmas, but I do believe in the power of faith, a force that can move mountains. I could give you countless examples, but I fear I might anger you and diminish the effect of my story. I confess that although I was not wholly converted, what I saw deeply shook me, and I shall try to recount it simply and sincerely, with the guileless trustfulness of a plain Auvergnat country doctor. At that time, I was living and working in the village of Rolleville, deep in the wilds of Normandy. The winter that year was merciless. At the end of November, after a week of bitter frost, snow began to fall. Heavy clouds loomed from the north, and soon thick white flakes came tumbling down. In a single night, the whole valley lay beneath a pure white shroud. The scattered farmhouses, each in its square yard behind a screen of frost-laden trees, seemed to slumber beneath this light yet heavy covering. Not a sound broke the stillness. Only flocks of crows etched long, restless patterns in the sky as they scoured the barren land for food, descending in black clouds upon the lifeless fields, pecking at the snow with their great beaks. Nothing was heard save the soft, ceaseless whisper of frozen dust sifting down without pause. So it went on for a week, and then the snowfall ceased. The earth lay swaddled in a 5-foot-thick mantle. For the next 3 weeks, the days were as clear as blue crystal, the nights strewn with stars glittering like frost upon a frozen pane, all spread above a level expanse of hard, gleaming snow. The valley, the hedgerows, the groves of elms all seemed dead, slain by the cold. Neither man nor beast stirred abroad, only the chimneys jutting from huts buried under white mounds betrayed signs of life, their thin wisps of smoke rising into the icy air. From time to time, there came the cracking of trees, as though wooden limbs were snapping beneath their bark. A thick branch would break and fall, for the frost froze the sap and split the rigid fibers. The dwellings, scattered here and there among the fields, seemed separated by hundreds of leagues. People lived as best they could. I alone ventured out to visit my patients, always at risk of plunging into some hidden pit beneath the snow. Before long, I noticed a strange fear had gripped the whole district. People said such a calamity could not be a mere work of nature. They swore that at night strange voices were heard, together with a sharp whistling and cries. These cries and whistles, without doubt, came from migratory birds leaving the north at dusk for the south. But try convincing frightened folk of that. Terror had seized their hearts, and all awaited some extraordinary event. Uncle Vatinel's smithy stood at the far end of the hamlet of Epavant, on the high road in those days buried under snow and utterly deserted. When the workman's bread ran out, the blacksmith decided to go to the village. He spent several hours talking, visited 6 houses in the little centre, got bread, heard all the news, and caught the contagion of the fear that reigned there. Before nightfall, he set off for home. Passing by a fence, he suddenly spotted an egg lying in the snow. Yes, an egg, white as all the world around it. He bent down. It was indeed an egg. How could it be there? What hen could have laid it outside in such weather? The astonished blacksmith could not make sense of it. Nevertheless, he picked it up and brought it to his wife. "Hey, woman, I've brought you an egg. Found it on the road." His wife shook her head. "An egg on the road? In this cold? You must be drunk. No, wife, it was lying by the fence, still warm, not frozen. I tucked it inside my coat so it wouldn't get cold. Have it for your supper. The egg was dropped into the pot where the soup was simmering, and the blacksmith began telling of what was being said in the village. His wife listened, growing pale. By heaven, last night I heard a whistle, it even seemed to me it came down the chimney. They sat at the table. First they ate the soup, and when the husband was spreading butter on his bread, the wife took the egg and examined it warily. And what if there's something inside this egg? What do you suppose could be in it? How should I know? Oh, nonsense. Eat it and stop imagining things. She broke the egg. It was perfectly ordinary and very fresh. She began eating it hesitantly, now taking a small bite, now setting it aside, now returning to it again. Well, her husband asked. She said nothing, swallowed the last morsel, then suddenly fixed him with a piercing, sullen, almost deranged stare. Raising her hands, she clenched them into fists and collapsed to the floor, writhing in convulsions and uttering terrible screams. All night long she was seized by dreadful fits, her body shaken by a mortal trembling, her features distorted by hideous spasms. The blacksmith, unable to master her, was forced to bind her. Without a moment's pause she shrieked in a wild, unnatural voice. "He's inside me. He's inside me." I was called the next day. I tried every soothing remedy, all in vain. The woman had lost her mind. With incredible speed, despite the impassable snowdrifts, a strange report spread through all the farms. The devil has entered the blacksmith's wife. People came from all directions, yet none dared step inside the house. They listened from afar to her appalling cries. It was hard to believe that such howling came from a human throat. The village priest was summoned, an old, guileless abbé. He arrived running in his surplice, as though to a deathbed, and, stretching out his hands, pronounced words of exorcism while 4 men held down the woman, thrashing on the bed and foaming at the mouth. But nothing came of it. Christmas came, and the weather did not change. On the morning of Christmas Eve, the cure came to see me. "I wish," he said, "that this poor soul might be present at the evening service. Perhaps the Lord will grant her a miracle in the very hour of his nativity." I replied, "I quite approve, Father. If the service moves her and nothing stirs the soul more, she might be cured without medicine." The old man muttered, "You are an unbeliever, doctor, but you will help me, will you not? You will undertake to bring her?" I promised to assist. Evening came, then night. The church bell tolled mournfully, its sound carrying over the dead expanse, above the white and frozen plain of snow. Obedient to the slow summons, groups of black figures began to gather. A full moon shone bright and pale upon the horizon, sharpening the dreary whiteness of the fields. I took 4 strong men and went to the blacksmith's. The possessed woman, still howling, was bound to the bed. Despite her struggles, she was dressed with care and carried away. The church, cold yet brightly lit, was full of people. The choir droned a monotonous chant, the organ wheezed, and the little bell in the server's hand rang, directing the worshippers. The woman, with her escort, was locked in the presbytery kitchen while I waited for the right moment. I chose the time just after communion. All the peasants, men and women alike, had received their God, to soften his sternness toward them. While the priest performed the sacrament, the church was wrapped in profound silence. At my signal, the door was opened, and my helpers brought in the madwoman. The instant she saw the light, the kneeling crowd, the glowing choir loft, and the golden tabernacle, she began to thrash with such violence that she nearly broke free, and she gave a piercing scream that sent a shudder of horror through the entire congregation. All heads turned, many of the faithful fled. She had lost all trace of the human. She twisted and writhed, her face contorted, her eyes wild with madness. She was dragged to the steps of the chancel and forced to the floor. The priest stood waiting. When she was seated, he took the ciborium, in which lay the white host, and, advancing a few steps, raised it high in both hands above the possessed woman so that she could see. She was still howling, her gaze fixed unblinkingly upon the gleaming object. The abbé stood motionless, like a statue. This lasted long, very long. The woman seemed seized by fear. As though spellbound, she continued to stare at the ciborium, now and then shuddering with a dreadful tremor, and at times uttering cries, though no longer so piercing. This too went on for a long while. It seemed she could not tear her eyes from the chalice, she only moaned faintly, while the tension in her body gradually slackened and she drooped. The whole congregation fell prostrate. The possessed woman now quickly lowered her eyelids, then raised them again, as though unable to endure the sight of her God. The cries had ceased altogether. Before long, I saw that her eyes were closed. She appeared to be sleeping, the sleep of a somnambulist hypnotized, forgive me, calmed into stillness by her fixed contemplation of the golden vessel, struck down by Christ the Conqueror. She was carried away, utterly spent, while the priest returned to the altar. The shaken witnesses raised the Te Deum in praise of the Lord's mercy. The blacksmith's wife slept for 40 hours without waking. When at last she opened her eyes, she remembered nothing, neither her illness nor her deliverance. That, ladies, is the miracle I witnessed. Dr. Bonenfant fell silent, then added, with a touch of annoyance, I was obliged to attest to this miracle in writing.